I forgot to make a recording of this first part. Anyway, I've started the recording. So I'll just briefly go through the problem again. So we started with the total number of shares issued, which is 15 lakhs. They've told us 30% is reserved for the promoters. So we minus that, and we are only concerned with the shares that are offered to the public. So we take 10 lakh 50,000, and that becomes a gross liability. We are not concerned with 15 lakhs. We are not concerned with 15 lakhs. We are only concerned with 10 lakh 50,000, because that's what is underwritten. Okay, that's what is underwritten. The balance was offered to the general public. Underwrite the public issue. We are concerned with the issue that is underwritten, not the entire issue. If the promoters do not take up this, the underwriters don't have to do anything about it. It doesn't concern the underwriters. Underwriters are only concerned with this figure. Okay, so that's why we have started this. We minus the mark. We've decided to solve also under benefit of credit not given. So that's why we have added the firm application to the unmarked applications, divided the ratio of gross liability, and that's how we come to this. Okay, so that's the first statement. Now they have asked us for another statement. Ascertain the number of shares taken up by each one of the underwriters. We have done this. Remember, this is not in rupees. This is all in shares. 6,30,000 shares, 35,000 shares, 45,000 shares. It's not in rupees. The second thing is calculate the amount received from or paid to each one of the underwriters by the company in settlement. What does this mean? Calculate the amount received from the underwriters or paid to the underwriters, paid to each one of the underwriters by the company in settlement. What do the underwriters have to pay the company for? Can anyone tell me? What do the underwriters pay the company? What will the underwriters have to pay the company? What will the underwriters have to pay the company? Or will the underwriters have to pay the company anything? If yes, what are they paying for? On account of what? My question is, what do the underwriters have to pay the company? No response? What are the underwriters, or what do the underwriters have to pay the company for? I'm waiting for an answer. No response? Okay. Now the underwriters are taking up these shares, 5,000, 35,000, and plus their firm underwriting. The underwriters have to take up these shares. Okay, they are responsible. So the fact that they are taking up these shares, will they have to pay the company for the shares? What is the meaning of taking up the shares? The taking up the shares are they have to pay the company. So the price of the share is 10 rupees. They have to pay 10 rupees for each of these shares. Okay, so that's the amount that the company receives from the underwriters on account of the shares that are taken up by the underwriters. That's the amount that the underwriters have to pay. The shares that are taken up by the public will pay for it. But the shares that are taken up by the underwriters have to pay the company. What does the company pay the underwriters? What does the company pay the underwriters? What does the company pay the underwriters? Nobody knows. What does the company pay the underwriters? I think I can get an answer here. What does the company pay the underwriters? Do the underwriters do the underwriters take this risk just for free? They just say we'll buy our shares if nobody takes up, and that's the end of it. What does the company pay the underwriters? On account of what? Seriously, nobody knows this answer. What does the company have to pay the underwriters? Yes, very good. Does it take so long? Underwriting commission, yes. Compensation, we call it underwriting commission. Okay, we call it underwriting commission. So what we are doing is the second statement that we prepare, we check how much the company has to pay the underwriters and how much the underwriters have to pay the company. So that's what it says here. Calculate the amount received from or paid to each one of the underwriters by the company in settlement. Either the amount the underwriters have to pay the company and the company has to pay the underwriters. So that's a statement that we prepare. So we call it statement showing amount due to slash due from underwriter. What's the meaning of this statement showing amount due to? Either the company has to pay the underwriters or due from will be the underwriters have to pay the company. Okay, so the statement will basically have two parts and then we finally check who has to pay who. We finally check who has to pay who. So again, we start with particulars. We start with particulars. We start with the answer of this statement. Always remember. So basically, if your answer of this statement goes wrong, this will go wrong. Okay, so we start and we say number of shares to be subscribed by the underwriters. Number of shares to be subscribed by the underwriters. Number of shares to be subscribed by the underwriters. What does this mean? A has to take up 35,000 shares, correct? That is 5,000 and for underwriting. B has to take up 20,000 shares and C has to take up 45,000 shares. Now this is in shares. Okay, this is in shares. A has to take up 35,000 shares. B has to take up 20,000 shares. C has to take up 45,000 shares. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check, since we are talking about amount. This is all in shares. Right now we are going to talk about in amount. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say amount payable at the rate of rupees 10 per share on application. Next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to check what is the amount that is payable by these underwriters per share on application. Now, what is happening in this problem? The entire amount is is received on application. That's what I have to take here. Say, suppose in another problem, they said only 2 rupees are received on application or 5 rupees are received on application, collected on application. That time we take only that amount. What's the meaning of application? Application is a stage where the shareholders or the underwriters show interest that they are interested in purchasing, show an intention that they are interested in purchasing the shares. Okay, so amount payable at rupees 10 per share on application. What is happening here? The entire amount is payable on application. What you have to take here is always the amount that is payable on application. Here in this problem, entire price of the share is payable on application. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since we are talking about amount here and these are in shares, I close this. Okay, so I'm going to close right now. I can't double underline as such. I will just underline it. Okay, I will just underline it, showing that this is closed. Why? Because this is the number of shares. This is the number of shares. But from here onwards, the statement is going to go in terms of rupees. From here onwards, the statement is going to go in terms of rupees. So amount payable at rupees 10 per share on application. That is 35,000 into 10 will be 3,50,000. 20,000 into 10 will be 2 lakhs. And 45,000 into 10 will be 4 lakh 50,000. That is amount payable by the underwriters at rupees 10 per share application. We are only concerned with underwriters. Public have already paid. Since the fact that they have applied for the shares, they have already sent the application money along with it. Okay. Now, very important. I'm coming to a very important part. Please pay attention. We have said here that is amount payable by each of these underwriters. A has to pay 3,50,000, B has to pay 2 lakhs, C has to pay 4,50,000. My question to you is, out of these amounts, have the underwriters already paid for something? Out of these amounts, 3,50,000, see from where these amounts have come on. This 35 is what the underwriter has to take up and from underwriting. So my question to you is, out of these amounts, have the underwriters already paid for something? they have to pay, A has to pay full 3 lakh 50, B has to pay full 2 lakhs, C has to pay full 4 lakh 50. Or have they paid for something already? I want an answer from you. Have they already paid, or they still have to pay, or they have to pay the whole amount? Does anyone have an answer? Have they already paid? Have they already paid part of this, or do they have to pay the full amount right now? And if they have paid, on account of what have they paid? Part of it. No reply. No reply from anybody. Okay. Now what happens here is, if you see this 35,000 shares, 20,000 shares, 45,000 shares, how is this 35,000? How have we come here to 35,000? 5,000 is what he has to take up as per agreement, that out of this 40,000 that nobody has taken up. And 30,000 is firm underwriting. When does firm underwriting happen? It happens even before the public issue is made. When the underwriters decide in advance, whatever may be the public issue, they will take up a certain number of shares. And when they say they will take up a certain number of shares, they also pay the application money on those shares. So whenever somebody expresses their intent to take up a certain number of shares, they have to pay for those shares, pay the application money. Okay, so out of this 35,000 shares, the underwriters have already paid for their firm underwriting. Because this firm underwriting is decided, is done much even before the public issue, where the underwriters decide to take up a specific number of shares irrespective of the public issue. So from this 3 lakh 50,000, 2 lakhs and 4 lakh 50,000, an amount has already been paid by the underwriters on account of firm application. We call it firm application. Okay, because it's paid for firm underwriting. So what I do is less amount paid on firm application, amount paid on firm application at the rate of rupees 10 per. So they've already paid 10 rupees for on their firm underwriting, because that happened much in advance. Okay, so basically if I try to multiply 10 rupees by each one's firm underwriting, for A it is 10 rupees into 30 will be 3 lakhs, for B it is 10 rupees into 20,000 will be 2 lakhs, and for C 10 rupees into 10,000 will be 1 lakh. Sometimes if one of these underwriters did not take up anything under firm application, you won't have to minus anything. Okay, so then we get the balance. It's a very important figure. The balance payable by underwriters. The balance payable by underwriters. So actually we had calculated that A has to pay 3 lakh 50,000, but out of 3 lakh 50 has already paid 3 lakhs on firm underwriting, which happened much in the beginning. So he has to pay only 50,000. B does not have to pay anything. How do we know? And if you look at here, B has taken up shares only under firm underwriting. He does not have to take up anything as per agreement. So basically, B has to pay nothing to the company. He has already taken up his firm underwriting, already paid for it. So nothing has to come from B. And C has to pay out of 4 lakh 50,000. He has already paid 1 lakh on account of firm underwriting. He'll have to pay 3 lakh 50,000. You can also check this liability as per agreement. If you multiply 5,000 into 10, 5,000 shares into rupees 10, you'll get 50,000. 35,000 into 10, you'll get 3 lakh 50,000. Balance payable by underwriters. So why B doesn't have to pay anything? Because B didn't have to take up anything as per the agreement. Firm underwriting, he is already paid in advance, because firm underwriting happens much in advance. Why we do this addition back? Just to know the total number of shares each one has to take up or has taken up. Okay, so through this calculation, what we have done is we have checked the first part. Amount due from underwriters, what the underwriters have to pay. What the underwriters have to pay. So A has to pay, C has to pay. Next we do is what the company has to pay to the underwriters. And what does the company have to pay? Underwriting commission. So we say underwriting, less underwriting commission. We calculate the underwriting commission for each one. Okay, so here we'll just can make a small note here itself. A's commission is equal to, sorry, I think I got the underwriters wrong. It's not ABC, it is PQR. Just realize that it's not ABC, it is PQR. PQR. So P's commission will be always, we calculated commission in the previous lecture, always on the gross liability. Always on the gross liability. So it's going to be 6,30,000 shares into the issue price. 6,30,000 shares into the issue price. Okay, and here the issue price is 10 rupees. Also 10 rupees is the amount that is collected on the application. Okay, so here 10 rupees is everything. But normally what we take is the issue price. So say suppose this share was issued at a premium of 2 rupees. So the issue price would have been 12 rupees. Okay, but right now it's 10 rupees. So into 10, into rupees 10, into the rate of commission, which is 2.5%. Into the rate of commission, which is 2.5%. Yeah, yes. Sorry, underwriting commission is 2%, not 2.5, 2%. Okay. Similarly for Q, we'll have to check the gross liability of Q. I think it is 2,10,000. Yes, 2,10,000, and R is also 2,10,000. 2,10,000 into 10 into 2%. And similarly for R, R 2,10,000 into rupees 10 into 2%. So if I do the calculation here, for P, I will get 1,26,000. For Q, the commission will be 42,000, and for R also it will be 42,000. So this is what the company has to pay the underwriters. So the underwriters P and R have to pay the company this, and this is what the company has to pay all three underwriters. Okay, and finally what we see is amount we call this amount due to slash due from underwriters. Now what we do finally is, this was the balance payable by underwriters. We finally check who has to pay who. Now in the case of P, okay, in the case of P, P has to pay the company 50,000, and the company has to pay P 1,26,000. So if I do the final adjustment, who will have to pay whom? P will have to pay the company will have to pay P. Again, P has to pay the company 50,000. The company on account of commission has to pay P 1,26,000. So if I do this calculation, finally the company will have to pay P, and how much will the company have to pay P? 76,000. Okay, so I will just put this in brackets because of 50,000 minus 1,26,000. Okay, here in case of Q, Q does not have to pay the company anything. Q does not have to pay the company anything, whereas the company has to pay Q 42,000. So wherever the company has to pay, we'll put it in brackets. Company has to pay Q 42,000, and in case of R, R has to pay the company 3,50,000. Company has to pay R 42,000. So R will actually have to pay. So here it will come to 3,08,000. 3,08,000. Okay, so this is how the statement is done. So what we were trying to find out is statement showing amount due to, due from underwriters. In case of P and Q, the company has to pay the underwriters. That's why we have put it in, because this is all in the books of the company. This is all in the books of the company, not in the books of the underwriters. So in case of P and Q, the company has to pay the underwriters, but in case of R, the company will receive 3,08,000 from R. Okay, so I'll just go to this statement again since it's new. We first need to check what the underwriters have to pay the company. So we start with the number of shares to be subscribed by the underwriters, which is the answer of the previous statement. We multiply it by the amount that is payable only on application. Here in this problem, the entire amount is payable on application. That's why we have to take 10. And then we see what the underwriters have already paid on firm application. So we minus that and we check what is the balance payable by the underwriters. So balance payable by your underwriters will always tally with this liability as per agreement into that amount that is supposed to be. Okay. Then we check what the company has to pay the underwriters, which is the underwriting commission. And then finally we see who has to pay who. So in case of P and Q, company has to pay the underwriters. In case of R has to pay the company. Any questions, students? Any questions? Any questions? Anyone has any questions?